Good evening, everybody. I'm back again. Hasn't seemed long since since last night for the auction, which was a great success. Good to see so many people tuning in. It was really nice, and yeah, back again this evening. So, got a few different things lined up tonight that I'm going to give a shot. One, I mean, I want to. You might have noticed with the thumbnail picture we did for this evening's live. It would be nice to get a little bit of focus around Koi Health. So if you have any questions related around that, please start popping them in, because I think given the time of year, with spring just around the corner, everything that's even happening with the weather at the minute, it's an interesting time of year. It does sort of tie in with the article I've written in issue 21 of Koi Talk magazine behind me as well. So yeah, just a good topic, I think, to discuss this time of year. So if there is any health related questions or anything along them lines, like I say, please fire away with those. Other than that, I'm going to, a few people's been asking me, sort of following on, I think Lee's topic, sort of hit a few bells with me last week, speaking about Japan. There have been a few questions recently as well from a few people about a few bits when I was out in Japan on work experience, if you like. So I had a bit of a trip down memory lane, and I pulled some pictures out, and I'm going to take you through some of the sort of interesting points, because that's kind of how I was photographing stuff by. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I'll take a picture for reference. So yeah, going to be sharing some of those ones as well for you. So yeah, should be an interesting one. And I'm not going to do it right now. I've got, like I mentioned last night on the auction, if you were there, I've got a couple of prize giveaways, and I'm going to do those based around some questions. So Q&A, but back your way. What I have got this evening is, they're not unwrapped, but all the way even. NND calendars, got 2 of those to give away, and you can't see what's in these ones, but these are Narita #1 Koi calendars as well. So yeah, be a nice one. I've got a couple of questions lined up for it, and we'll be giving those to the first 2 correct answers for each question that we see come up in the feed. So yeah, should be good fun. Other than that, I've not really got anything too much to recap. I had quite a fun day. I've just we're just in the process of signing up on apparently the one. Nice one, Satch. Yeah, it's I've just about signed off on the Koi Talk mugs, so finally getting into gear with all that stuff. They're going to be coming to you very, very soon. And then I've had the samples arrive for these today. You see, I've got one on. This is actually a long sleeve one for me, because I'm a bit nesh. But yeah, there we go. It's going to be the original Koi Talk t-shirt. So they're going to be coming very, very soon. Now, yeah, getting cracked on with them. So I know a lot of people have been asking us for all that stuff, but I'm very finicky. I like to do things a certain way. So until I'm right and happy with the product that we've got, you won't see any sign of it, but we've got there, even down to what we've done with the mugs. I have to do a lot of learning in the process to get the end results that I want, but that's just the way I've always been. That's a nice question, Joe. Have I gotten away with dipping into your Dainichi stock? for this week, yes, mate, but be careful with that one. Be very careful. Love it. What's that, Crafty? Northern Wibs. No. It's not typically Northern, mate. It's just me, pal. That's all. What's that one that we've got there from Gary? Calendars with all Koi events on for next year. Wow, that would be great, buddy. But the reason we didn't get calendars this year, right? This always ends up being my fault, because it gets to like end of November, and I go to Steve. Should we do a calendar, Steve? And he's just like, and sure enough, did it this year, and we just knew with the Royal Mail strikes and everything, it just completely wiped it out. So that was game over with that one. But we are working on it properly, ready for next year. However, Oh, there we go. I got some quotes in today. Yeah, getting all the events on for next year, I think will be difficult because a lot of the stuff don't get released until next year, unfortunately. But we have had that idea. I just think the execution is going to be a little bit difficult with that one. But we'll see. It's all in the pipeline, as well as a really nice new project we've got underway for another Koi Talk product. So happy days. And not forgetting next week's show, folks. Next Thursday, 7 p.m. Don't miss that one with our guest panel. We're getting together. Pretty excited for that. It'll be really nice. Sorry, I just see the wife. Nice to see you, mate. Nice to see you as well, darling. Good to hear from you. Brilliant. Right, I suppose I should get looking at some questions. Like I say, please, if you're watching, hit share, hit like. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. It's all greatly appreciated just to help the channel grow. As the channel grows, we'll just keep putting more and more back into it to make it as good as we possibly can. So, let's have a look what we've got sat here. I've already answered Joe's question. So, Joe, yes, you did get away with that for now. Gary, bacteria exist in all koi ponds. What are your thoughts on bacteria blooms causing the problem? Yeah, I think I've spoke about this before, Gary, but it's a really, really good point about bacteria blooms. So this is a very non-scientific explanation of this because I'm not a scientist, but bacteria blooms, what we have got good and bad present in your pond at all times, aerobic, anaerobic, the good, the bad, everything is all there. What dominates whether it's a good or a bad in a state, so a state where aerobic's thriving, which is all the good bacteria, or anaerobics are thriving, basically comes down to food source most of the time. So it just depends which group is dominating the food source, and that basically then comes down to sort of conditions you create in the water. So when good bacteria is thriving in that pond, it's very hard for bad, which is opportunistic bacteria strains, to get a look in. And how you prevent that from happening is by keeping your water well oxygenated, keeping your filters clean, not letting debris build, which can turn really, really nasty. These are all things that can create them kind of conditions. As well as that, obviously, the fish are basically a food source for bacteria. They're constantly kind of suppressing it, fighting it away with their immune system. But, as soon as you get, say, if you had a bad parasite infestation, the fish really break down, their slime coat is damaged, immune response fails. All of a sudden, you're going to be basically the opportunistic bacteria can strike. And if then start to grow in numbers rapidly, that can tip the scales. And it can be very hard to tip the scales as well. Don't just think it's an easy task. It's really not. I've spoke time and time again about how difficult bacterial infections are. That's why a proactive approach to this is really, really important. I think I see less of it caused by this these days, but back in the day, years ago, there was a lot of culprits. Bad maintenance on sort of multi-bay filters, and this didn't come intentionally. Some people just didn't realize you had to be draining them bottom channels off, where sludge just builds up and eventually turns very, very bad. And that becomes a cracking food source and breeding ground for all this bacteria. So, yeah, got to be really, really careful just to make sure that's all flushed away. Bottom drains are flushed away on a regular basis. Anywhere where you can't see, this is a reason I'm not a fan of big bead filters in general. I think the EA ones these days with the K1 are a little bit better because the media doesn't clump, because that used to be a big issue. But I don't like those closed vessel filters because you can't truly see what's going on unless you strip them all the way down. And what can tend to happen there is that can build up inside of those, again, turn anaerobic, and it's just, you're going to be in trouble. So, and this is where there's a whole sort of dosing with probiotic into the pond as well. The whole thought process behind that is, you overwhelm bad with good, and it makes sense. What you've got to be careful of sometimes if you're using medications and you're not, because they can destroy bacteria on all counts, formaldehyde, things like that, potassium, they can destroy. Chloramine T is a nasty one, can really destroy bacteria, but it's bacteria of all kinds. And when you kind of level the playing field, yeah, it's kind of a rat race then, which one's coming back first. So lot to consider with it. I don't necessarily think it's a natural bloom of one swinging to the other. It all depends on what's going on in the greater environment as to where you end up with it. And yeah, taking a proactive approach is the one. So Gary, thanks. Struggling at the minute, but learning so much. Think mine has come from Long Pipe and New Bend from the Skipper. Yeah, I mean, Gary, tell us more. It can unfold as we're talking. Is it definitely a bacterial infection? What's the symptoms that you've got going on? How long's it been going on for as well? You know, winter, spring can be a tricky period for this stuff. Yeah, a little bit more information. I might be able to shed a bit more light on it, but in general, yeah, I don't say it's a bloom. I think it's circumstantial for what's going on in the environment at any given time. So yes, hate them, but yeah, thoughts go out to anyone suffering with a bacterial problem. They're really, really nasty. Whilst in there, what are the best items to get for salt tests? For testing salt, Koi Medic, the Koi Medic pen that tests it, that's the absolute best, most accurate bit of kit you're going to get. They're not particularly expensive, and it tells you exactly what it reads in parts per thousand and in the percentage, which would be my preferred choice with that one. And they're really easy to look after as well. No real issues. Lee Hadfield, can you explain the difference of zooming the pec fins of Showa and Sankey? What should you look for in a good example? Yeah, I mean, the difference on a very basic level, Lee, is it can get complicated, as it always is. But in Showa, we've got Motoguro, which is basically like a block, like with Showa, the Zumi, and then Tajime, the fins, is the spacer stripe. So you've got Motoguro like that, if you like, in the base of the knuckle, and the Sankey's, it's like that. An example, I mean, there's no real good and bad. You want to pay attention to Sumi quality there as well. And it's all about balance. Sankey don't often need to see it in the fins to be a good example. Showa tend to look a bit strange when they've got no Motoguro in the fins. It is a really nice characteristic to have. But yeah, when you get it in Sankey, it does add, it's just another sort of area of elegance that I think Sankey kind of exude. And it's just a great to see it, but not actually all that common. You're not going to see it in every example of Sankey and don't need to. And then, yeah, let's say the Showa Motoguro, but both ultimately need time as well. You know, don't expect to see it absolutely blushing in a Tosai or even a Nisai, to be honest with you, buddy. So, yeah, hope that answers that one. And looking forward to you joining us next Thursday, Lee. Right, let's have a look. Question on pH swings. My pond is swinging between 7.6 in the morning and 8 in the evening. I've been told it's not good for the fish. Should I be concerned? Adam, not whatsoever. 7.6 to 8. I mean, if we were just testing with a liquid test, you probably wouldn't really see much difference in that. So wouldn't know. And I don't think people test it that often to know. It's bigger swings than that you want to be more concerned about, to be honest with you, in a short space of time. But that small differential there, mate, is minute. So that's going to it's going to show no problems whatsoever. I think probably if people were checking, most ponds would have, you know, similar kind of swings like that over that kind of time period as well. So yeah, I'm not sure who's told you it's not good for them. It's a natural part of a pond. Ultimately, so I won't worry too much. Right. What are the best locations for pond returns? I'm in the process of building a new pond. I have gone with one directional at far end. However, is there an impact on depth of returns on the fish? Yeah, so one directional, like I said, I'm a big fan of. So you already know that. Ultimately, I would, if you really want to do it, and a way I've just done before, just so it gives you all the different options, is sit a couple just below the water surface or above it if you want above, just below, and then, you know, a couple probably mid-water as well. And what you can do is sort of stagger them. So you've got two there and two offset a bit lower down. And obviously they'll all want valving off. So you have got variation there and a good current at all different levels as well. That's the method I've used again in the past for people, and works really well. And you've just got all them options. You can run one side if you want, you can run the other, you can run them more at the surface down below. It's just one of them jobs, unfortunately, when you're building a pond, you've got one crack at it. So I think better to probably get it done in the first place than regret it later on. Steve Watson, how are you doing, Steve? Hey Rick, if running costs out the window, will you be an advocate for running a shower? Some say the mix of K1 and biochain and the ceramic is beneficial. What's the pros? Yeah, I think I've said that myself, Steve, to be honest. Yeah, both is a great way to do it. You do sort of get different bacteria groups, you get different effects as well. Let's not forget a shower, I wouldn't do it personally, just shower only. A lot of the time, I do like to have a fluid bed where possible. So your fluid bed is going to be that real heartbeat. The shower, all that extra. Don't get me wrong, you can do it with shower only. Just my preference, because I really do like what I've seen, an environment filtered by K1 in a fluid bed form. The environment and water I've seen that create over the years is something I cannot get away from. And that's not something I can fully explain with science. It's just through seeing different setups and ponds filtered in that way with that system and how they behave and how the water generally looks and environment keeps. So I'm a big fan of that. And yeah, showers is a great add-on, because what you can do there is, obviously it's not just the biological nature of a shower. When you've got a shower running, if you get the airflow right, we've got the oxygenation that comes from it. Also got potential degassing as well. So very, very good for that purpose. And yeah, nice way again to add more biological filtration. That sort of wet dry effect can be really good as well. So yeah, I think the two is the ultimate for sure. If running costs are out the equation, absolutely. But as it stands, if running costs are a problem, you're going to be far more efficient with a fluid bed than you are a shower. So hope that helps that one, buddy. Joe, right. Are there any koi farms in Japan you can see competing with the big boys for the major awards in, say, the next 5 years? Or can you see it back in Dainichi, Sasaka? Yeah, very, very good question. So, I mean, if we're looking at consistency and this being predictable every year, do I see it happening very often that Dainichi or Sakai, I'm even going to take Issa and Momotaro out of that equation, Dainichi or Sakai don't win the top honours. This is just how dominant these two farms are in what they're doing. And even to be honest with you, I think the expectation every year is that unless someone really pulls it out of the bag, Sakai will win. Because I think I've said it before, Sakai it's just koi. It's in the industrial production of koi. A customer who was with me on the last said that, and it just makes sense. The place is just so vast. The breeding is all data driven. That's what made them so good, so efficient, pumping out so much quality consistently year on year with everything that they do. And I just find it hard to compete with. I don't know. I don't think Dainichi follows that same approach. I think it's a lot more traditional. I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. It could be either of those two at any moment. Issa has never won the Grand Champion prize. Obviously, he wins top honours. But yeah, I mean, if we're just talking Grand Champion, I see it hard, beating them two. Just every so often, there'll be something magical come up. We've got last year, it was, weren't it, Mariyama, I think. But even then, that was a Mariyama bred fish that in the end was raised and refined for that show by Narita, not by the farmer himself. And Mariyama's done that now, actually, with a Showa, which I think was of his own raising, and then a Kohaku, but was ultimately raised by Narita. It took, a diamond in the rough and polished it up. So, yeah, obviously that guy plays a big part in the prizes as well. But I see anybody doing it? I think if anybody, even out of that list you've given me, if we're talking about the very top honour, Issa stands a pretty big chance from what I've seen. Where his Showa are going, where his Kohaku are going as well, to be honest with you. He can pull it out of the bag for sure. I mean, at the Nogi-Osai level, he competes against Dainichi and often does bag the prize. Monotero, again, there's always that potential there for it. I just don't think they're currently at the same level as Dainichi or Sakai overall in sort of finishing, skin condition as well. Growth wise, obviously, that's always been, you know, the super jumbo thing's always been the Monotero. I do think quality wise, they just lag behind Dainichi and Sakai a little bit, but the level we're talking at here is extreme, you know, and that's me really nitpicking amongst the three of them or that list there even. As for anybody outside of that, again, it could be, but it's possibly, you know, for some of the farms I'm thinking of, a once in a lifetime thing to potentially bag an award like that. But in the current climate, they must think, my God, it must seem like an almost impossible task to knock Sakai and Dainichi off of their perch, to be honest. But never say never. Things can change. There's some talented young breeders coming through with a lot of ambition. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, good question there, Joe. Sydney again. I see a lot of people netting their fish. I've only netted my fish 2 times in the last 3 years. But I have time to watch them. How is the best way to net your fish? Right, when I first started reading that, I thought that could possibly go a different way, that question. Because, yeah, I mean, netting your fish, unless there's any real cord, I know it's nice to see them out sometimes, but let's not forget netting is a stress event. And this is something that us on the trade side face and retailers face, you know, where there's so much netting and handling. It is a stress event all the time. And these small stress events can ultimately lead to parasitic outbreaks. And that's not something you want to be coping and dealing with all the time. So, yeah, that'd be my first bit of advice. Don't just net unnecessarily. Obviously, if you need to get them out because you suspect a problem and you're doing a skin biopsy or whatever, a mucus biopsy, then yes, great. But just netting them up for a look, you can do so much damage. It only takes one wrong turn on that net fish to jump. You can do physical damage to it. And as I say, as well as the stress event that comes from it as well. But yeah, the best way to net your fish is with a pan net. You want to get one that you can maneuver easily. And it's all about being calm. You know, if you try to go at the fish's stressed, irate, and fast pace, it will do you every time, I promise you. So you want a decent pan net that's got a nice little bit of depth to it as well. Not too much depth, because as you bring in the net up, you can just give it too much space to get its tail and absolutely fly. So, yeah. That's the one, really. It's not one I can really describe too much without physically showing you, to be honest with you. But pan net to a bowl, when you've got your fish in a bowl, especially if they're bigger ones, a small, tiny bit of anesthetic, you know, a fraction dose can just help calm them down, reduce stress, rather than jumping around, potentially jumping out and doing damage and stuff that way. So, yeah, hope that helps. A&C Koi, we've got an air source heat pump to give the koi proper growing season. Just wondering your opinion on what temperature and how long for. Yeah, so anywhere between 22 and 25, 24, 25 being your real optimum for the summer. And I would look at giving them, you know, somewhere in that temperature band from April through till, you know, sort of September, October time, you know, easing them into it, hitting your peak, maintaining it, and then the winding down period at the end of it. But that's where you want to be. Toe side, definitely to max them out between 24, 25. But yeah, you really want to keep going for it. Question there from Lee. What's the Blue Green Award behind you, Ricky? Yeah, I think that was from the Wackagoi in 2016, where I had a bit of a hoard. I got a Sabaki prize and my first Kukugio. I think it was for something around there anyway, mate. And to be honest, I think, yeah, all in Japanese, so absolutely useless. Your guess is as good as mine, mate, but it's for one of them anyway. There we go. My brother, looking forward to the Wackagoi next week, rocking it for the UK. Yes, he has been doing my head in, organising all his entries, to be honest with you. Yeah, but well done. And hats off, you know, it's great to loads of customers getting the opportunity to show fish out there when in the Wackagoi. I think I've only entered one myself this season. I'm being very, very, very good boy at the minute. Right, let's see if I've missed anything. So I know we've got a few more tuned in now. So very shortly, I'm going to look at doing the contest that I'm on about. I've got a couple of questions lined up. I've got 2 NND calendars to give away, and 2, you can't see them ones anyway, Narita Koi Farm calendars. Yeah, I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and Steve's watching in the background in the comments. The first 2 answers will get the name down for one of them. We'll get one posted out to you. And then, yeah, just towards the end, I'm going to take a bit of a trip down memory lane. A few people have been asking about the time I spent in Japan from a work experience in the first summer. So got a few interesting pictures to look at there shortly. Let's have a look. Gary, thoughts on covers close to the water service? Ponds cannot breathe and worried they are trapping gases from the water. Yeah, again, you don't want to get it too close, and it's important that you do ventilate as well. You know, got to get some ventilation in there, get them covers up throughout the day for a little period. I think, was it you, Gary, who mentioned the bacterial thing earlier? You know, I have seen this as, you know, results of ponds being covered, but I think one of the biggest problem comes with this is you can't observe the fish as well. So, you know, my concern when it's covered is, and this happened when I had the boiler system installed up at the farm, the initial reaction was my dad started making covers for everything, and we got one pond covered over, and instantly, you know, I've had to stop because I know how much that takes away. You know, from my experience walking up and down the fish houses, I will pick so much up just out the corner of my eye from the fish observing their normal behavior. The minute the pond's covered over, you don't see the normal behavior. And there'll be an event where, you know, you've pulled the covers back, then you only see you've disturbed them at that point. So even if the fish were all static, for example, you pulling that cover back will disturb them and sort of jolt them into action. So it's hard to see that true behavior. It's hard to see that one fish that could be isolating itself under the part of the cover that you've not removed. And that's what concerns me, because then it's easy to miss the starts of parasite problems. It's easy to miss the start of all sorts of problems. So we're in this real shit predicament, really, in the UK, that, you know, ponds do need to be covered because winters are long and temperatures are bad. And if we're heating, especially, they need to be covered as well. But I did make that choice. I mean, it makes it, you know, a pretty horrible environment in the greenhouses because we get all that condensation and steam. But for me, it was a no-brainer. Obviously, yes, they're covered by the greenhouse, and that's why we're looking to cover the surface to really, you know, reduce costs and stop the condensation, really. But when it actually came to it, I just couldn't do it. So there we go. But yeah, if you are covering, ventilation, some form of ventilation is still very important on a daily basis there. Sorry, just following up on Joe's bit. Could you ever see someone like Omasako win it with a Shiro, for example? Possibly outside of Japan. In Japan, I don't think so. It's just that the Gosanki are too good and too strong for a Shiro to come in and do it. However, I can never say never, because Omasako have actually come in and won one of the majors. I think, was it last year or the year before, with a Kajaku, which was a very well-deserved reward, to be honest. But yeah, sorry, it goes against the grain, that one. So we'll see. But I think the Grand Champion honour will just be too much. If we look at the history of it as well, it's never been anything other than Koraku, Sankey or Showa that's won it. And I don't suspect it will be any other way. Koi Vlogs, what is your opinion about Momotaro and his focus on Koraku now? Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily focused on Koraku. I mean, breeders make decisions. My last visit there, yes, there was a lot of Koraku, a lot less Sankey than I would want to see. And yeah, no, they'd not really chose to spawn Showa, and was then messing around with Kajaku and other types of Kawari and things like that. So, you know, ultimately these farms, they're run by an individual who comes up with an idea one year. If he gives it a shot, he's only got one opportunity, so then it's another year to correct it. I would guess you would see more of the usual stuff coming back this season, unless there's a trouble with the parents or spawning or anything like that. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, I mean, the Koraku are superb, aren't they? What I like at Momotaro is they really seem to have And for a long time, they've been leading the way with the production of the male fish, the real high-level, big-bodied, big male Go Sankey, and that's not really changed. He put something in the bowl for me when I was there. It was just on another level, extreme fish, and it's good to see. So don't get me wrong, it's still a huge farm, and managed to secure some tow-si from there as well. They're heading back soon, which is going to be nice. I've known Montero fish for a long time, because it is still a massively popular farm and very tough to get fish at generally. So there's quite a few Koraku there and Sankey as well. So we'll wait and see. But I think, to be fair, in recent years, the show has been the really popular one at Montero. So yeah, it was strange to not really see that many of them this year. Let's have a look. Carrying on from Joe's question, in your opinion, Ricky, what's stopping Terrazzo from competing with the big boys? His fish always look impressive in bodies and skin. Yeah, I don't really know how to really put that into words. I don't want to insult anybody, that's for sure, and that's not what I'm doing. But we have to look. I mean, pattern's a big thing, and this was actually something interesting that Ryuki was saying to me in a conversation with Hiroshi from Danichi Toyota. And he was basically saying that he's probably never going to win the All Japan again. Obviously, he's done it once with Kinsen, but because his pattern style's too old. And that was a really interesting comment to hear, because, it sort of makes sense. There's also pattern styles that come, in certain trends as well. And, that he's just not really at that point, whereas Dainichi, the main operation, sort of is hitting the button without a lot more. Sakai's hitting the button. So if we come back to someone like Terrazzo, don't get me wrong, he produces a lot of big, impressive fish. But if we look at the dynamics of the quality and the shift, and this is just shows how high that level is. You've got Terrazzo that can produce 90 cm plus Go Sankey. He's done it more than once of a really good level that would dominate anywhere outside of Japan. But unfortunately, within Japan, he's got Sakai that know how to do it, that extra 10-15%, and a Danichi. And again, if we see that real size, it's the quantity of the fish as well. Terrazzo is got the potential to probably do that one fish, but probably throughout all the time that he's breeding, that could potentially do it. And that might even not necessarily, it might have to be raised at a different place. Like I say, we've seen this with Narita. He's done it with a couple of breeders' fish where he's took the fish, he's worked his magic on it, and it's eventually won awards. This actually happened back with Matsunoski in the day when they created the first Magoi Sankey line. The fish from that became the first 1 meter Go Sankey that went on to win at the All Japan had sort of stagnated at the farm where it was produced, and then it actually ended up at Montero. And those guys took it, up through the levels, got the extra growth, size, condition, and it went on to win. So it's not necessarily always about. I think that happened with the Yamatoya fish as well. Showa that won. Yamatoya bred but not raised at the farm. It was raised elsewhere with somebody with more facilities and more skill, to be fair. So it's an interesting one. But Terrazzo, he's around the Niigata area, is a high level breeder. But like I say, these other guys just take it really through the gears. It's remarkable and testament to what they're doing. Really, it's pretty immense. But good question. Right, folks, I would say just now I'll work through a couple more of these questions, and then we're going to get on. So if we can sort of stop feeding any new ones through now, we're going to do the competition, and then pull up some of these old pictures and have a chat through that. I think it'll make for an interesting conversation. Let's just have a look here. Paul, good evening, buddy. Should I build another pond when back in the Midlands and go long, have about 50 foot to play with, and narrow? What would be the minimum width, even then, when fish are fully grown? So, the ponds I've sort of paced out when I've been at Sakai and Taniguchi have tended to be about 40 foot long and about 10 foot wide. It's a mega perfect pond for raising fish that without needing to go too much bigger, to be honest with you. About 1.2 meter of depth, and you're just laughing. That's going to be a colossal amount of water. and you will raise anything in that pond. I mean, it's probably excessive for raising towside, to be fair, but nonetheless, you do a lot of them. But yeah, for raising other fish, absolutely perfect. You've got a stretch like that, then absolutely game on, buddy. I look forward to seeing that pond build. Crafty, can a koi fix a damaged dorsal fin, and is there any tips on aiding this? Yeah, it's a tough one. You can't really do too much with the dorsal. When they snap the front bone, that generally, if it's a very small split, it can come together, the bone. But if it snaps it clean off, it'll often leave it with a bit of a kind of stump at the front, or it never fully reforms. Splitting the tissue in between, that will heal back up. It can take some time, especially when it goes all the way down. That can be really difficult, but ultimately fin repair is water temperature. It's one of the sort of biggest aids for it, but also because of the activity levels can work against it the most as well. It's a bit of a catch-22 situation, that one. So yeah, just heat helps fins repair very quickly, and give it some time. Damaged dorsals, and if you get to the point where if it's damaged by a bacterial infection and it eats through the fin and then into the back a little bit, that's game over. You'll never get any regrowth there, unfortunately. It will be just as if an ulceration breaks the skin and opens up the flesh, that will become a scar. You'll never get the scale regrowth on it, which is frustrating, and why it's best to try and avoid it at all costs. Here we go. I'm going to go with this as the last one for now. Liam, how are you doing, buddy? Your method and medication of choice for cleaning, treating, sealing wounds, please, Ricky. No issues in a minute, but good to hear your methods. Yeah, I've never given too much fuss to this because I've seen treatments for this do more harm than good in the past. My choice is I like Tamidine. It's a very thick iodine that you can apply. Clean up the wound, remove any dead tissues, don't dry it too much. Got to remember that it's the slime coat of the fish. You damage the slime coat too much, more's going to get in, and you've got to be careful of that. So I literally just dab it off very lightly, cover it in Tamidine, let it dry for a few seconds, get it back in the pond. The removal of dead tissue on a wound is the most important thing, because you'll never get it to fully heal while that's sat in there as well. And yeah, that's the one really. That's all. If it's anything I ever address, bits of raised scale, stuff like that, that's what I want to go with, mate. So hope that helps. Our propolis can be quite good as well. And again, not too aggressive, but ultimately, if the medication's had contact with the skin, it's going to have done it. You haven't got to worry about it being dried on there for all this time. The slime coat is the most important thing, and I've seen stuff that's actually open wounds up in the past. I'll never forget a horrifying picture that was shown to me by this company's wound treatment. And yeah, I mean, it was remarkable. Within 7 days, it had made it 5 times the size, and it did that consistently. So yeah, got to be careful, because some of these things can burn, can be very aggressive. And yeah, like I say, I just like to clean it off and then get it back in the pond and try not to do too much damage to that. And yeah, while Liam's on, Liam is going to be doing the catering with his, I believe it's his rare breed pork. He's been very generous with. At the last event, however, he's going to be there's part 2. So Liam's going to be doing the catering. Looking forward to it. Liam, if you're still watching, buddy, feel free to pop in the comments details about your venture, buddy, because I think it's one for any foodies out there well worth a look at. But yeah, my gripe, mate, and I did have this out with him, the last event, he gave everybody a goodie bag except me or any of the team. My brother got one, Kev got one, I think Lee got one. Everybody else except us. Come on, Liam. Hey, I'm expecting a hamper for the next one, mate. So big that it's going to take me and Steve to carry it to the car, mate. So I look forward to receiving that one. But yeah, my brother's raved about it anyway. So yeah, feel free to let us know, mate. We'll give you a bit of a plug and a shout out. I'm sure Steve will pick it up if you comment on where to steer people. Right, I'm just going to get a bottle of water. Then competition time, folks. Throat is drying up, somewhat chronic. So first one, so how this is going to work. I'm first going to do, so first competition we're doing is for the NND calendars. Got 2 of them here. I'm going to ask the question, and then the first 2 people to reply as we see it in the comments. So that's as it comes through on our feed. First 2 people I see reply, or Steve sees reply, will be the winners with the correct answers. So, yeah. Here we go, folks. Are you ready? Fingers on keyboards. First question. Which farm did I study at after I left school? So my work experience trip. Very simple answer. Should know it by now. Fire away with your answers in the comments. And yeah, first 2 get the calendars. So question is, which farm did I study at after I left school? And we're going to ask people to be specific as well. And you've all fired straight in there. So I will stop it, guys. You've been fast. But yeah, the answer was NND. You're correct. Well done for you all paying attention. Yeah, so I think that's the winners on the screen that Steve's pulling up there. Like I say, we'll go with it as it comes in our feed. So well done, guys. There's a copy of the NND calendars. The answer was even there for you, okay? I've been kind to you with that one. Yeah, next one. So this is for, you can't see these, but they're pretty impressive and very colourful. These are Narita Koi Farm, #1 koi calendars. I've got 2 of those. Sat waiting. I'm going to exclude you 2 guys who have just won one this time. Make a note of that, Steve, just to be fair to everybody. And yeah, so here it is. And then this is going to tie into the, or a little bit, not exactly, but to the next part. At what age was I when I first visited to Japan? So my very first trip, what age was I? Feel free to fire it into the comments. So, folks, what age was I when I first visited Japan? Wow, we've got them flying through. We've got the wife trying to win a calendar. Christ, so many replies. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so the answer was 12. Well done there, John Rodway. One of those calendars on its way to you, buddy, or will be when Steve sorted it out. Dale OG, there we go, mate. Congratulations and thank you for everybody trying that one. We've also got, not quite figured out how to send them yet, but I'm going to do something with these. I'm probably going to wait till next week. I've got quite a few Ikari caps to give away, so we'll do something similar next week, either on Q&A or the Thursday night on Koi Talk, and see what we can do with that. But there we go. That was a nice bit of fun, folks. Alan's answer 6, brilliant. Yeah, I weren't quite there at 6, mate. I did try when I was 10. My dad went for the first time when I was 10, but he weren't having none of it, to be fair. It made me wait another couple of years, but yeah, nice one. That was good fun, that, folks. We'll probably look at doing a bit of something like that every week, to be honest. Right, so yeah, feel free to ask any questions on this part. So this, I'm going to just go through some pictures. Like I say, I've had a few people asking me some pictures of my first trip to Japan and a bit of the backstory. I say first trip, first work experience trip, a bit of the backstory behind it when it happened, because it is a big, it's, you know, super pivotal moment for me in Koi that just opened my eyes to so much. And I'm forever grateful for Fujo for extending that opportunity. Although when he tells people the story, he does tell them that he said it jokingly. But when you tell that to a very excited and eager to learn 13-year-old, you offer that opportunity, that's only ever going to go one way. So, yeah, that's the way it went. So, yeah, the backstory, I first met Fujo when I was 13, first trip, something I'd actually set up because the prior experience I'd had when I was 12 was really quite, obviously I enjoyed it, but I could see even at that age so many problems. Grab the Koi to win. Brilliant. You can win Koi on the auction, Nick. All you have to do is tune in on a Tuesday night and bid lots of money, mate, and then you can win as many as you want. Yeah, so that came about because I'd been Nishikoi International magazine that Nigel Caddick, the late Nigel Caddick, used to produce. I loved it, and Fujo used to advertise in it. So I'd had this Japan trip, and for me, I felt like there were these barriers. You know, I was with an agent at this time, and there was always this wall between, well, the wall was the agent between me and the breeder, and I wanted to get to the breeder. I wanted to get there. I wanted to learn and figure it all out. So when I eventually got back, I said to my dad, "Look, can I send an email to Fujo, see if there's anything we can do?" So I wrote me a little story, sent it off, and a couple of days later got a reply. And a few months later, we went off on our first trip with him, and it was just a game changer. We did really click from day one. I know he was fascinated that at 13 years old, I knew what I knew, even about the breeders and everything going on out there. And you know, he did a lot for me, as well as putting up with me. I mean, my God, I used to ask him that many questions in the car. I think at times he must have wanted to stop and just jump out, to the point where I used to make a joke of limiting it to 2 questions per day. Otherwise, he was going to charge me. So this went on, and sure enough, throughout that, he came up with this little one comment that, you know, when I'm old enough, I should come and stop with him at his house and learn about Koi. You know, as a breeder knows it. And I never let that one go. So 16 years old, I think I finished school, had a couple of weeks working at the shop, and booked it, packed it, and fucked off, so they say. And that was me. So and his Koi, yes, was that you when you were in Springtime in Koi Land? Yeah, that first trip with Fujo when I was 13. That was that. If nobody's seen that, there's a New Vision production called Springtime in Koi Land that I starred in back then. Found that all very intimidating, but it was a nice video. So I went just completely oblivious to Fujo. I spoke no Japanese back then, absolutely nothing. I never negotiated the cheers, Nan. Never negotiated the train stations, anything like that, all on my own, and I just didn't give it a second thought. Got on the plane, buggered off. Met Fujo in Nagaoka and off to his house. That experienced daily Japanese life and the works of a breeder. And at this time, it's when they were just forming NND as well. They just set that venture up. And it was just remarkable. It was late in the summer. I think it was in August kind of time. So it was incredibly hot. I do remember that bit. So hot, just absolutely mental. And they were very worried about that, the dehydration. They were just on it constantly. So there was what we call second crop spawnings being done, which the fish were still quite small, and then cullings of some bigger stuff, as well, as we'll see when we work through this. But just a few photos to sort of share through the journey. So that was that picture back then. I've actually got this in my room in Japan that Fujo had done for me. I needed a good meal back then. I'm just saying that to Steve, all skin and bones. But 16 then, and that was the first day, believe it or not. First day, first morning at the NND Takia Mud Pond Complex, and we were doing a second shower spawning, I think it was. And that was just remarkable. You can see here, that's the sort of size of the fish and what I was dealing with. You can see there, that was sort of like a mixed net. So before they were actually graded, that's what we would be working through. Fascinating, truly fascinating, and so much. I thought I knew, and I delved into that, and straight away, sort of got it wrong. Didn't take me long to pick it up. It was a very, very good teacher, but they were the fish. And then he's a good character. Fujo loves a laugh, and that picture there, I still remember to this day. His caption was, "Which hand is better for selecting Koi?" And I would say back then I'd definitely give that to him, and I'd question him a bit more these days, to be honest with you, and we'd have a laugh saying it. But really good memories from that. And then we sort of move on. Sorry, pictures are all a bit mixed up. So It was an interesting one. I think one of the pictures I tried to upload has gone missing. But yeah, what this was doing, this was something that blew my mind, to be honest with you. So we've been culling Kohaku in the pond. You can see Kobayashi in the background there, sort of doing it. And what I'm doing here is we added a chemical called mazatin to the pond, just as it's a preventative measure. I mean, mazatin is very potent, nasty stuff. A small amount could treat a lot of water, hence it can be used in mud ponds, even with the volumes of water there. And this was mixed up. I remember three things actually from this. He was so worried about breathing it in, but never gave me a mask or anything. Typical Japanese. And then, I mean, the dosage, he did really, was very fussed about the dosage, and then proceeded to go in. I think it was something like, we need 250 grams. This packet's 500 grams, and then estimated half the packet into the bowl. Just absolutely remarkable. And then, obviously done on a big scale. So we're mixing that up in the bowl and then going and adding that, distributing it all over the pond to make sure it's mixed in. And that's as a preventative measure, just to deal with the stress, the fish to deal with the stress of the netting and all the handling they'd been through for the selection. So that was fascinating for me, because again, I'd kind of wondered, how the hell do you treat a mud pond? It's just so much water involved, and we actually went on to use that as well in bigger ponds where we suspected some issues as well in later years. So really, really good one there. I think just before I carry on, there you go, Liam. So listen, a few minutes behind, sorry. Snout wood trotters, free range, rare breed pork, bred, reared, butchered and cooked by ourselves. Wow, I never knew that bit, mate. Impressive. Farm to fork. So like I say, Liam's going to be at the event, but if you are into your food and you want some quality pork, get on his website, have it a look up and support him as well. Cracking lad, Liam. So back to it. Medicating mud ponds. Whether you knew that, no, it certainly blew my mind back at that time. It really, really did. And then, we moved on. This was some fish then from a later selection. So I showed you the ones before. This selection these are much older. And this was actually already at the 4th round of culling. So another important thing to note there, 4 rounds to get to this point. I mean, these are young fish, good size already. You can see the benny's not all there, but the quality, I think, was there for all to see. This was the top 3 fish from that day's selection. I remember that as well. This was a big pond, and there was raising something like 80 to 100 pieces in it, which, again, stocking levels we just can't compete with. And this is the the real start of the journey for jumbo tosai. It's starting back in the mud pond while they're being raised, and all the effort goes into them from day one. But the selection criteria is very, very different from that point to the point I've just shown you here. So right here, we're mainly trying to focus on assessing the benny quality more than anything. That was his real focus. And what you see there, those orange, the stronger ones that you might think, oh, that's a stronger color, they were rejected. Point blank rejected. It was the more yellowy fish we were looking at, just looking for the depth, thickness, and everything like that. But that was the real sort of core focus at that point. Obviously, anything deformed got moved out, but it's only a 2nd round cull. There's not, you can't be looking in too much detail. And that's something that I stress all the time. When you guys are looking at fish, you can't look too much into it when they're toe side. There's got to be, quite a lot of room for improvement to be left. When we got to this size, we were then looking very differently, more refinement, looking at kiwa, quality of the kiwa a little bit more, and body and a few more technical elements, but still, again, not dissecting them to the nth degree, but certainly paying a lot more focus to those technical elements of the quality. Amazing. Right. Let me get the next one. So I'll just dip back into the comments there. There was one. It's made me chuckle. That pond you can just see off to the left was full of fish growing through to Nisai. It was all chagoi. That there was a mixture of pellet food and silkworm pupae, and that was one daily feed for that whole pond. It was quite a lot of food. Fill that up off the back of the truck, chuck it in, observe them for a little minute, and then on to the next pond with that one. But yeah, you can just imagine the volumes of food that the guys actually get through when they're doing this stuff. It's remarkable. Yeah, there we go. There is the Japanese modern trickle-in system. Absolutely superb, top-notch quality. So yeah, again, something else I didn't expect. I thought these mud ponds were just sort of left to it. Here, this was the sort of freshwater feed to the mud pond. Obviously, stop it getting too stagnant. Obviously, there's a lot of manual feeding put in here, and that the pond can only filter and process so much. So yeah, that's a pipe, stream water feeding in there, and then just running to overflow. And this was quite an important deal. His summer's gone by when water's been a little bit scarce because it's been too warm. Pond water levels drop a little bit through evaporation and things like that. And then, they can't get fresh water to it. They do have to quite drastically reduce feeding levels to keep the pond ticking over. So this plays a really vital role. But yeah, some might say, this goes against everything I've been saying about the trickle. This is very, very pure water being fed up into here, that's running down the mountains. So it's if I could get that stuff on tap, I'd be flushing it through absolutely everything. Yeah, great system. And then, yeah, that was the view I had one day when I was working. What a place to work that is. So, as well as the farms individually, so all the NND guys I spent time with, and at the houses as well. So with Fujio, I stayed with Makoto at NND. I spent a night or two with Nogami as well. I spent, I think, 2 days working with Yagenji. And this is when I was with Yagenji right up in the mountains doing a showa selection. And yeah, I just remember, you being sat up there, the side of a pond, with the temperature, it's just silent. You can just hear the birds. Nature, that was it, and doing such an amazing job. It was, felt really sort of blessed and privileged to be doing that at that point. And I know a lot of the breeders really appreciate that as well. They don't take it for granted. They know it's pretty special, to be honest. What else have I got tucked away? Oh, there we go. A couple of old shots as well. That was when I stayed with Makoto at his house. Really great times. And yeah, Nogami as well. You can see, you might have seen some pictures of Chikara there as well. Pretty much grown up with Chikara. It's quite funny now when we sort of see each other. But yeah, that was back then. It was great to spend some time there. He's now pretty fluent in English as well. As Pathy's dad really steered him down. And yeah, while I was at Nogami, so a lot of his ponds are shared with Dainichi in similar mountain space. And just when he was at the sort of back end of the trip, and straight away there, he's had a lot of training. He's a Dainichi Obikai Nogami, so he's had that apprenticeship, and just the way he did things, I found mind-blowing. The way he'd created a device and how he sort of hijacked some fish out of the pond to inspect the sort of stage they were at before he decided whether it was ready or not to do a selection. And then as we moved through the ponds, I'd just seen different stuff. This was one of the ponds up there, and one, it was the size of them. I'd learned a lot about watercolor at this point, and all of a sudden I saw this what was classing as this perfect watercolor throughout all these ponds, and then that fountain in the middle for the aeration. I just felt at that point I'd noticed things being done very differently. And I think that goes to show in the level them breeders are at as well, that things were being done differently. And it was nice to get that sort of perspective, to be honest. And then, yeah, the whole trip, Fujio was very keen for me to experience all of the daily life. So they involved me in everything. And this was being built at the time. This is the main NND fish house where I spent a lot of time. And yeah, they got me geared up. I'm not a big fan of this kind of work, to be honest with you. Me and power tools should be nowhere near each other. And there we go, look, got me kitted up. proper Japanese workmen in there, and this was actually grinding concrete down at this point, so getting the ponds ready to be painted. But yeah, really didn't miss anything. I was netting blanket weed out of ponds, strimming and cutting all the grasses. I was just hoping to go for all the glory work, but he was adamant that I experienced it, end to end. So yeah, it was absolutely fascinating. And then, went on to repeat that for 2 summers afterwards at varying different times as well. So over the 3 summers, sort of like, and captured all of the different periods. And maybe, pull some stuff together for them at some point as well. So, there we have it. See, Liam's just get us a bit more info there. So that's what we're going to have on offer at the event, part 2. Like I say, amazing food that's going to be. And yeah, if you've not got your tickets for that already, come on, folks, support it. We want to make it the biggest success possible. So obviously inspire us to keep going with even more events like this and bigger ones in the future. So tickets for that day are available to buy on the Koi Talk website, £22.50 each. Absolute bargain for a good koi orientated day out and everything that we've got on offer. So yeah, there we have it, folks. I don't think I've missed anything there. I appreciate you all tuning in again, listening to me for another hour on the back of the 2 yesterday. But yeah, now let's not forget, next Thursday is the new Koi Talks over on the Koi Talk channel coming up. The Koi Talk live with our guest crowd. Everyone's going to be on next week. Myself, Chris, Joe, Yevo, Lee Adfield, Crafty, and Mr. Tate as well. So I think it's going to be a cracking episode, hopefully a cracking series. And yeah, happy days. I'm going to get home to the wife. Apparently she's not seen me all that much. And I'll see you guys next week.